Family Tree. Life's an everyday adventure. That's my philosophy. I almost couldn't sleep last night because I was thinking about what my friend Lily had told me. She said her family had just discovered a whole bunch of uncles, aunts, and cousins they hadn't known before. All I could think of as I was falling asleep was, do I have family I don't know about? When I woke up, I daydreamed about who they might be. First, I thought I might have twin boy cousins who are fishermen in the Arctic. They would catch boatloads of fish every day and have polar bears as pets. They'd be so cool. Next, I'd discover I was related to a whole family of chocolate makers. The mother would make wonderful, gooey, and delicious chocolate. The father would cut it into shapes, and the 3 kids would make each piece colorful and pretty. These were cousins I definitely wanted to meet. Then I thought I'd learn about an old auntie who ran an old home for old zoo elephants. She would live in a hut in the center of a huge farm, and all of the elephants would be her friends. She would feed them, make sure they had fresh water, and give them lots of love. She would be the first new relative I would visit. Elephants are excellent. Finally, I jumped out of bed and zipped downstairs to ask if maybe we had some family members like the ones I imagined. I giggled because I startled my parents when I flew into the room. Then I quickly blurted out, "Do we have any family in the Arctic?" My parents both looked at me. Then finally my father asked,
"Are you okay, Miss Molly? Did you have a strange dream about people in the Arctic?"
As I ate my cereal and berries, I told them about Lily finding new family members and my hope of finding some ourselves.
Aha! Interesting question, Miss Molly. I think the best way to solve this mystery is to create a family tree,
my father said as he patted my head. I love trees, I exclaimed. Then my father asked me to gather some supplies. A huge piece of paper, some colored markers, and some tape. As I was gathering the supplies, I wondered what a family tree was. Was it a tree that looks like someone in the family? Perhaps it was a tree that everyone in the family helps to draw. My toes tingled like bees buzzing in my moccasins as I whipped around the house. I met my father in his thinking room, and he began to explain what a family tree is. He said that families grow like trees because they start with a trunk and grow branches outwards. As each person is born into a family, the tree gets more full with branches and leaves. It is an easy way to learn about your ancestors. My ancestors? I questioned.
Yes, Miss Molly, we all have ancestors. Our mothers and fathers had mothers and fathers, and their mothers and fathers had mothers and fathers, and so on and so on. It is hard to keep track of them all, but let's see what we can discover as we build our family tree,
my father said as he laid the huge piece of paper on his desk. The first thing my father asked me to do was to draw a tree trunk at the bottom of the paper. Family trees have to start with someone, and we chose me. So I drew my face in the middle of my tree trunk and wrote my name, Molly.
Excellent, Miss Molly. Now let's draw the first branches,
my father said as he drew a branch to the right of my tree trunk and one to the left. The branches closest to you are for your parents. My family tree was already growing. We put one leaf on each of the branches, one for my mother and the other for my father. My father liked that I drew my face on the tree, so instead of just writing their names on each leaf, he asked me to draw their faces. My father drew another 2 branches with 4 leaves. He said they were for my parents' parents, meaning my grandparents. I wasn't sure what to do here, as I had only ever met my grandmother, who is my mother's mother. Wow, this was already getting confusing. My father said he had something that might help. He opened the cabinet behind him and took out a box of photos I had never seen before.
Here's a picture of my parents, Molly. They were very kind and cheerful people, just like you.
I looked at the pictures and drew the faces of my father's parents.
I wish you could have met them, Miss Molly. They would have loved you,
my father said as he gave me a hug. Just then, my mother walked in. My father explained where we were with the family tree, and she told me about her father, my other grandfather. I had never met him either. I knew he was a bread maker, but I didn't know why. As I drew his face on his leaf, my mother told me that he became a baker to get my grandmother, who loved bread so much, to fall in love with him. And it worked! They got married soon after she tasted his delicious bread. My father drew longer branches because this time we had to add my great-grandparents, all 8 of them. My father showed me photographs and told me some great stories about my big, wonderful family. We talked and laughed as I drew their faces on the tree leaves. As we hung my big family tree on the wall, I realized how many great people are in my family. Some lived in faraway places, some built railroads, some were writers, and some were inventors. We may not have found new aunts, uncles, or cousins to add to my family tree like Lily did, but I discovered lots more about the family I already have. Now I know what my new favorite tree is, my family tree. Molly Moccasins, everyday adventurer.